Good afternoon, Dan. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Jane. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. All the better for getting started up front with you this afternoon.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for being a guest. I know we've been in communication with you. I'm really intrigued to find out more about both of your businesses, really. So perhaps before we get started, you could tell me, introduce yourself in your own words and tell me a bit more about what you do.
Sure. Yeah. What I do now and my background
Yeah,
or
background with lead up to what you're doing now would be great for listeners
great.
to
Okay.
hear
Well, I'll
more
give it.
about.
I'm getting on a bit, so my background's quite long. It's a long story, but no, I
We've got a
started
long
off.
time.
Yeah, I've been in like content creation, as it's now called, for like 35 years, if you can believe that. So I started
No,
off.
I don't believe you.
I started off very young in TV and kind of like moved over to digital when things kind of really got excited there. I was a bit late to kind of YouTube. I saw it happening, but I was so kind of embroiled in TV that I kind of didn't really spot what was really happening. But yeah, so I moved over from TV to got two companies now. So there's Sprat, which is a video production company and customer advocacy agency. So we do a lot of customer story videos. So we go around companies all around the world, kind of finding out about them and creating customer story videos, and live streams and music videos and what have you. And the other company is a company called Shoutout, which is new or relatively new. We've been in development for a few years, but it's basically a software company that's got this web app that enables you to create videos automatically. So we completely change the video production process, where normally you film a video, you edit it, and then you deliver it. With Shoutout, you actually create your template first, your branding template, and then people can send out a link, a URL to people to record like a testimonial or to promote an event, and it will automatically create a video. So it's a way of scaling video production.
Okay. I wondered how that one works. So I think
It's good. It's very good.
so that gives people a platform to make it look a bit more professional. So if they're trying to do it themselves but haven't quite got the editing skills, or they go and get the footage and then it sits on the phone or the device and they never do anything with it, this kind of takes it to the next level, does it?
Exactly, yeah. So basically, with my background in TV, like the one thing, I'm sure you know this. In fact, I looked at your website just before this call, and you do this. The one thing I kind of bang on about with people around content is to use what TV's done successfully for years, which is create formats with your video content. So almost like a TV series, if you like.
Yeah.
So in other words, you've got your brand. You can also have a brand of the content itself and make it episodic. So you can have like, thought of the day or tip of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
So what Shoutout does is create these kind of little mini formats for you. So even if you've just record, a clip on a phone or on a computer, it will brand it all up and put it into this format. So it's a great way of creating this kind of episodic content and giving a kind of context to it, if you like, rather than it being just a video clip.
So is it almost like encouraging clients to, instead of thinking of their traditional blog or an addition perhaps to their blog or their newsletter, to start sharing more what's happening through video?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, video is enormous, obviously. I mean, the thing about video is that it's three-dimensional in a way. Is you can explain multiple things at the same time, because you've got pictures and you've got all this kind of input coming in. So people's time is precious, and it's becoming more and more precious and harder and harder to grab people's attention. So video is a great attention grabber, and it can also tell multiple stories in one go. So you've got an audio stream and a video stream, and they can be telling two different stories somehow. Even when you watch someone that's maybe not telling the truth and they're saying one thing and their face is saying another, you've got two kind of conflicting stories going on there. So it's a great tool in that respect. And I've completely forgotten what your question is.
No, it's been fascinating. It's fine that we've digressed. Absolutely. So, okay, let's take it back a stage then. Did you, was video where you started your career? Has video always been part of what you do?
Yeah, it was. I actually started off in radio like a really long time ago, and like making radio shows and editing using a razor blade and cutting things together, and making corporate videos as well so before I got into TV, I was desperate to get into TV, and I worked making corporate videos. It was so long ago that the guy that joined the company after I left was a guy called Christopher Nolan, who's a very famous director. So that was when he was making, we were friends like back when he was making corporate videos. But yeah, so that's where I started. And when I got into TV, back then things were slightly different. It's not like now where you could do a bit of everything. Then you had to really specialize in one thing. You had to be really, really good at one thing. And the thing that I really concentrated on was sound. I became what's called a dubbing mixer, a sound designer, if you like. So I spent a lot of time doing that and really kind of honing that craft, which was a really, as it turns out, an amazing thing to do, because there's so many skills with sound and being able to listen and being able to kind of tell a story, which are really kind of really important moving forward.
And do you find that because having been in the industry for so long, and because every stage was more considered, if you like, it's almost now things are thrown together and that's a bit of an afterthought. That sounds not even considered. Are you pleased that do you think that gives you the edge in some respects, because you would pick up on things in that quality, whereas you would say that's not being done properly, whereas perhaps if another agency might think that's absolutely fine, and that's what differentiates between a kind of absolute professional polished video piece of work compared to something that's being done?
No. Do you know what? It's a really interesting question, because I do and I don't. Like, I'm so lucky to have had this background and this sort of, things become very second nature when you've done it for so long. But equally, like, I remember when YouTube first came out and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, like this is like terrible, like technically awful, like everything about it was awful. But the way I liken it, and if I explain it to people, it's like sort of being kind of bigging myself up here, but not in a way. It's like a classically trained kind of pianist, seeing punk for the first time.
Yeah.
And actually, it was just, I couldn't get my head around it. But as it turned out, that really took off it moved the kind of storytelling forward. And I think, now I love that rough round the edges look. It's kind of another reason why Shoutout came about, that kind of much raw, visceral, kind of exciting content that all the YouTubers without that technical skill managed to do. And in some ways, having that sort of technical ability or that sort of that storytelling of old, became a bit old fashioned.
Yeah.
So I really love the way it's going. And I don't think there's any such thing as, something that's not polished enough. I think it's all about telling a story.
Yeah.
About engaging with someone. And it's like there's some amazing stuff being done by people with no training at all, and they're making these amazingly engaging videos. In some ways, I think actually what's happening is that, and there's something I talk about a lot, is that the kind of corporate world is going to have to go more into the YouTuber world to still be relevant. Their content's going to have to be less sort of stuffy and serious and old-fashioned. It's got to be more kind of engaging. And you see it in adverts a lot where they kind of fake it. But I think there's I think the next big thing is going to be corporates just sort of letting loose,
letting the guard down a bit more. Because you definitely see, I think they kind of just over lunch conversations, or that's if people buy people in your business and that's what they want to see. They don't want to see a voiceover talking about your business and how it's been established for X amount of years. They want to see what's the character behind the business, what do you actually do, what does your office look like, what are the people wearing, how do they speak, how are you going to speak when we're working together, not just on a polished voiceover. So completely agree with that. And what I find fascinating is having children, when we were kids, we had a limited amount of TV and that was what you watched. Whereas now it's almost like they find what they want to watch on YouTube. And I find that it's very difficult for anything on TV to hold their attention now, like YouTube, because it's moving at such a rate and it's being created almost by kids, for kids. So I know there's parents involved, but it's such a change.
It's such a change, and TV is always going to have the problem of, and I feel sorry for it in a way, of the slots, the 1 hour slot, the half hour slot, 57 minutes, 26 minutes, whatever it is. And that's a real problem because, you know, like if you're governed by time, it's very hard to make something engaging because you either have to pad it out or you know, kind of, well, you kind of had to pad it out, really. It's very hard, you know, it's very difficult to get something that fits into exactly that slot. But just to pick up on what you said earlier, I think you're exactly right in terms of people now care more about like why a company does something than necessarily what it does. People really do engage with like the individuals in companies and the kind of what the ethos is, you know, how the staff are treated, what the vision is. You know, people are really getting sensitive to that, which is great.
Yeah, and I think video is absolutely a way to get that out there and stay in touch, really, isn't it, and release your content. And I think how much as an agency, because one of the things, obviously the video production's a big part of it, but when you're speaking to clients, they probably say, well, I don't know where to start, I don't know what stories I'm going to tell. I mean, we get the same when we're working with clients as well, whether it be written content, video content. So they kind of need a bit of digging and a bit of a strategy creating for them. Is that something you get involved with as well?
We do, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is about, you know, video in particular, there's two halves to it. There's the production, but the main bit is really the ideas, you know, and the strategy. And people sometimes kind of get the two confused. They you know, they go for companies that can produce videos.
Yeah,
producing videos is getting easier, but there's still a, you know, a knack to it, for want of a better phrase. There's still a technical aspect to it. But it's really the strategy that's the important bit, the strategy and the kind of, just what, you know, what they want to do. It's amazing that so many people kind of want videos, but not really sure why. Not really sure what, you know, everyone's saying you need to do videos, but it's, strategy is hugely important. We say no to a lot of people, actually, that we just think it's not going to work. I'm sure you do too. It's
I think having the plan, knowing that you've got somebody that you're not feeling like you're forcing to be on camera, who's going to be a natural, or a team of people who are going to be confident with it, as much as you can make people feel at ease, there's got to be some kind of, they've got to add something, haven't they? You don't want it to be cringe-worthy. And then I think it's, I know we talked about YouTube, but I think for a lot of corporates, I think YouTube sometimes becomes a hosting platform, and then it's thinking about the strategy for social media. Is it LinkedIn? Are they Instagram? What type of business are they? How are they going to get it out? Because producing it, you see it so many times, company has a big corporate video done, they spend thousands on it, and it gets a handful of views. And I think, well, that didn't work. Whereas actually the hard bit can be the sharing of it and the strategy after you produce the content as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't get involved in that, actually, but you're exactly right. You know, there's the content itself and then the marketing of the content. It's a bit like that, you know, they say in feature films, you know, they spend as much on the film or the marketing of the film than they do on the film itself. So it's a whole nother ball game. But I think, I mean, I guess our expertise on the video side is like video is a language, and we can speak that language, if that makes sense. So you know, some people like just they can't sort of speak the language of video, or they can't sort of visualize how things will work on video, and we see that a lot. And I think that's really important to know, like, how to translate one thing into a genre of video. And sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, we could spend months like figuring out how to tell a story with video. It's not something that you can just turn up with a camera and point it at someone and kind of do it. It really does take quite a while to do, and it takes a lot of thought. And people sometimes underestimate how tricky it is to make a really good video. It's like anything, doing anything is easy, but doing it well is really hard. And also, I always talk about this, but I think it's a really good thing to say, is that no one really knows how to make a great video, or to have to make a great film, or even how to kind of write a great song. It's one of those things where if we knew how to do it, every song would be great, every video would be great, and every film would be great. And you're not. So no one really knows how to do it, but you just try and figure it out as best you can. So there's a lot of skill involved, and also a bit of luck.
And timing.
And timing, exactly.
If you time something just right and it's released and it just touches that chord with people. So it's not a science, it's not a science, is it? It's not something that you follow a formula and like you say, and it works every time.
It really isn't. No, you're exactly right. I mean, there are rules, but yeah, you can't. And anyone says that they can do it every time, all the time, is just not telling the truth.
Yeah.
You can't.
So I noticed through your show reel that there's a few famous faces in there. I'd imagine the nature of your work lent you to introductions to quite a few famous people over the years. Is there anyone in particular? Is there anyone? Do you still get starstruck by famous people, or?
Do I? No, I like because in working TV, I just have almost spend more time with celebrities than
yeah.
Not, in the TV world. Have I ever been struck? No, Paul McCartney used to say hello to me when I worked somewhere, and that was a bit starstruck by him. Occasionally, like it's maybe like big directors or
especially if you don't know who they are sometimes, isn't it? And then you just treat them like normal people.
yeah, exactly. Or it's a surprise. I remember I got invited out for a drink with someone, and I turned up, and it was kind of, they were very funny about the table and and where it was, and it was basically his two friends that were turning up with Tim Burton and who's the director, and Danny Elfman, who's an amazing composer, who's like a hero of mine. So that was quite cool.
Oh, that's quite exciting. But better that you didn't know. You would have made you nervous if you didn't.
Exactly.
You're just in that situation then. Do you find then, if you've worked a lot with celebs and famous people, they're almost like pros at this, and then when you have to go and work with the likes of businesses that aren't doing it day to day, you notice the difference in quality?
That's interesting. No. Do you know what I think? I think everyone. I mean, I think people that are really good, like presenters that are really good at what they do, they manage to kind of simplify what they do and can explain it really easily. I mean, I've worked with like so many well-known presenters to say, look, all I do is just read an auto cue. That's it. That's what I do. And it's of course it's not what they do. It's who they are, and there's a kind of level of detail with what they do, which is incredible, and a likability and all this other stuff. But no, I think everyone. I think we all suffer. If you're talking about being on camera, because that's always a good subject, because one of, like, Shoutout is a great tool to make videos, but it's not going to help you if you're nervous of being in front of camera. I think what people don't, they sometimes, and I don't know why it is, but they just assume that they can do it right straight away and not feel nervous straight away. It's like anything, it takes a bit of practice.
I'd agree with
techniques, but you do it a few times and it's fine. Like I'm looking at you on the screen here when I should be looking at the camera, and I know that. And if I look at the camera, I probably engage a lot more. But selfishly, I'm looking at you down here, and I can engage with you in my own mind. I'm not, for an audience, I'm not looking at the camera, which is up here.
And funnily enough, when you do look at the camera, I feel like,
so it'd probably be really engaging if I talk to you like with the camera there.
It can be a bit freaky though sometimes, can't it?
But it's, so the point is, there's some really simple things that you can do, and like that I'm not doing now, basically. And also I'm sitting on the side of my chair and my posture's terrible. So I think it is just becoming relaxed though, and I know whenever I've done any video and it's been totally within my subject area, but I've almost thought I'll write myself a little bit of a script beforehand just so I know what I'm saying. That has made me so nervous and so kind of just like, I've missed to say that, I said that. Whereas actually, if somebody just asks me a question and just pretend that we're having a conversation over lunch, I'll be fine. So I think you can over prepare as well in some respects. So I think it's just, if you know your subject, you know what you're talking about. Perhaps if I was reading the news, I'd be terrible at that, because I don't know. Do you know what my best tip is? And it's a really good tip, I think, actually, if I do say so myself. But it's a really good tip, and it's like, basically, if you can, like, if you're on video and you you know, people talk about doing things 100%, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but if you are 100% or as much as you possibly can, think about what service you can provide or what you can give in terms of what you can communicate to people, how you can help people. If you're always thinking about that, then there's no real space to think about yourself and what you get wrong and how you look and all the rest of it. Because mostly, like, if you look, and it's really fun, and I know you guys make videos, right? So and
we try.
Really strange is seeing someone change when they sit in front of a camera. They literally, you know, start to not be able to speak properly, and it's only because it's all introspection. They're just thinking about, you know, they're suddenly aware of themselves. Where we're normally aware out there. So if you can stay out there rather than in there, then
maybe the pandemic's been a bit of practice for that, because I think, you know, 2 years ago, if I asked you to come on a podcast and you'd say, yep, where are we meeting? Where are we doing it? Where's the studio? Whereas now you're almost so used to seeing yourself on camera that maybe it's broken down that boundary a little bit, hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, a bit more used to it. So going back to pandemic briefly, I know we're coming out of it, but we are still in some respects in it. How have the last few months been for you? What was it like when we kind of entered the first lockdown? Was it a lot of things put on hold?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was certainly on the Sprat side, on the video making side, it was really tricky. It was kind of weird actually, because, you know, it started off like, oh my God, it started off actually where events went. And then people suddenly had loads of budget for videos, and there was like, oh my God, we've got to do all these videos. And it was like, well, we're never going to be able to do all that. And then like a week later, that went as well. So it was definitely tricky. I think we did a lot of remote videos actually that worked really well. And yeah, but it was certainly kind of, you know, it wasn't just the traveling. I think in general, you know, marketing seemed to be one of those things where it was like maybe not quite the right time. It's like to kind of bed in and figure out what was going on. And there was what was really interesting to see. And we got asked to consult on a few virtual events. And that was really interesting to see how that kind of manifested itself and how that kind of really worked, because it was, you know, like event companies were making virtual events when actually in my mind it should have really been kind of content creators. You know, a virtual event should have been like a 1 hour bit of content really, or with some potentially live elements in it. So that was interesting to see how that worked. But yeah, that side was definitely quieter, and it hasn't, you know, for us it hasn't completely recovered, to be honest, but we're spending a lot of time on Shoutout, and that was like what we were doing on the whole, you know, the whole of the pandemic.
So good timing actually that you'd already started on that. And I suppose, I think if you hadn't have done that, probably would have been your cue to now or never, really, wouldn't it? With that time to focus on it. So good that you had that in the pipeline. It gave you something to focus on, although you probably would have quite liked to have all furloughed yourself and enjoyed the weather. I know I at the time was tempted to. But no, it gives you that downtime. I think one thing I've certainly noticed on the social media side of things with businesses, there was a lot of people who were recording just their own videos, and I think the quality kind of didn't matter too much. Everyone had let the guards down a little bit. It didn't matter if they were in the garden or in the home, rather than it all being so professional. So again, maybe the pandemic speeded up that kind of just be a bit more natural, be who you are. I think everything became a bit more acceptable during that time, didn't it? People know that you've either got children or you've got some pets, or everyone's just doing the best really to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we did a lot of video calls before. So we worked with a big tech company that kind of, you know, that we were on video calls for like years before. And it was really interesting is like, you know, the week after the pandemic, suddenly all these people that didn't have their video on, it was kind of getting switched on, where normally it would be like, no, I'm not going to talk to you. So it did change, you know, we like we always do, we, you know, humans adapt really quickly, and I think it is interesting, and I think it added to that authentic idea as well, you know, and it became, you know, in some ways what was interesting, it became more about your background than your foreground. People kind of figuring out what was going on behind people, and, you know, seeing where people lived, and it was an interesting definitely an interesting time.
Yeah, the ones you can't trust are the ones who used to blur the background. That
Yeah, exactly.
More intrigued. What's going on? I really want to know what's going on there.
Yeah.
So what's your team size then within your agency? How many people have you got?
So yeah, it's quite small actually, but we've got around 10 at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's expanded, more because of Shoutout.
Yeah.
But in terms of, normally we rely a lot on freelancers because we find, certainly going on shoots, the people that we really want to be helping us out on shoots are normally too expensive for us to employ full time.
Yeah, well, it gives you that flexibility of skill set, doesn't it, as well?
And also the thing about working with freelancers is they have a wide, they've got much more experience working with other people and other situations. So yeah, it's
you can switch it on and off, and if you think that somebody's going to be a great fit for a client, then you can bring them in, I suppose, can't you?
Exactly.
And does that go for work and character as well? Do you line people up based on, I think that individual is going to really get the best out of that particular client skill set wise, but also I think those characters are going to be a good fit for each other.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, character, that, sometimes even over and above everything else. So absolutely, I think what do they call it, cultural fit, whatever the terminology is so important. And I think we've got that wrong in the past, and we've got it right. And I think I've been guilty of underestimating the importance of it, actually, of underestimating how people will get on with clients and also get on in a team as well.
Yeah, I think it's so crucial in video. And even if someone's going into photography, just start making people feel at ease, giving them that confidence. They might be amazing at technically shooting, but they haven't got that ability to put people at ease or communicate with them or be on their level. Like you say, I think I'd agree that that's probably almost more important.
It's the most important part of the job, I think, making people, because the way, certainly doing customer story videos, but it's the same with everything. Oh, sorry, something's very loud beeping there. So we treat shoots almost as a kind of performance in that, there's getting the finished video, and there's also like how, the experience for certainly a custom story video experience for a customer. So if we're working, we've been entrusted with, a valued customer of our customer, and then they've got to really have the best possible experience and have the best, to feel like it was a really enjoyable and fun experience for them. And that's so important. And that can sometimes, sometimes you've got a graph where you've got, quality of the video versus that, and they're opposed. So, getting that balance right is so important. You don't want to, like, for the sake of kind of getting the video 3% better, are you going to leave them having had a really bad experience or just feel tired or whatever? So yeah, getting both is what we aim for. And I think, but it's really important to get both sides right. They've got to enjoy it.
Yeah. So when you look to bring people in your team, what character traits do you look for? What would stand out on a CV? Is there anything that you think as a minimum you would have liked to have seen them worked on, or is it more character and you can train everything else? Or be interested to know what you kind of look for when you're recruiting.
It's a great question. The thing, controversially, what I don't care about is qualifications or any kind of media degree. I know I'm that might be unpopular, but media degrees, I don't understand them. There's so many of them, they just don't make sense to me. So because I don't understand them, I ignore them.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is like someone's ability to listen.
Yeah.
When I worked in TV, that was I just gave them one interview question. I gave them a listening test, and that was it. And I think that's so important, because everything you do in this industry is about, you're taking a brief from someone, you're trying to understand, and the first route for understanding is listening. And if you can't listen to what someone's saying, then and it's hard. It's so hard. I mean, it's taken me years to, like, of practice. I studied hypnotherapy, counseling, like an NLP master practitioner, in order to kind of understand people and trying to understand what makes people tick. So some people have that ability, and some people you think they would never, it's just not there. So that's the most important thing for me. And that's it, actually. With that, you can do anything.
Yeah, you can train the rest, can't you?
Yeah.
Do you think in order to be able to listen, they need to instigate the right questions as well? Because sometimes people, I guess that comes back to the brief, but if they've got a brief and they're perhaps asking questions, but they feel, I'm not quite getting what I think you need to be saying for this. So that's a bit of a skill as well, isn't it? Learning how to interrogate people in a nice way.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the thing. And once you've got that kind of listening skill, then you inherently will ask the right questions, because it's derived by kind of, and when I talk about listening, I'm not talking about like your parents, used to say, you don't listen, just sort of listening to understand and kind of absorbing what someone's saying. Sometimes it's the subtext, they might say one thing, but you can kind of tell that they actually mean something else. So yeah, absolutely. It's that's part of, they call it active listening, I think. So part of, asking the right questions, figuring out what really people want, and kind of not leaving a conversation until you really understand. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a situation where I've sat in like big boardrooms with lots of people, and I'm the guy that kind of and says like, I'm really sorry. Like, can you just one more time? Let me just get this really straight, what you're saying. Yeah. Where a lot of people would have kind of been too embarrassed. It's not being embarrassed to appear stupid, it's just to really, really understand. And it's normally at that point on that question that you realize actually there's, they've fundamentally they're not understanding about something about their messaging, or we're not understanding it or something. But it's really just having that ability to kind of really get to the core.
And I think that comes with confidence and time, doesn't it, in some respects? I think once you are confident and you know that you've been in the situations before, there is no stupid question, really, is there? Really? Any question, if you're unsure, is either they've not explained it clearly enough, or it's just not resonating with you. And probably everybody else in the meeting as well, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it is, and I think some it's almost like Emperor's New Clothes. Sometimes it's where there's something kind of slightly left. I think with any kind of communication, with video especially, it's very you've got to really get down to kind of a core of humanity and how you're going to kind of convey things to people, and it's not. There's a lot of sort of marketing speak. I've not had a career in marketing, but obviously I work with a lot of marketing people, and there's definitely like a language, but sometimes you have to break that down to real basic, like really something really basic, like a child would understand. And I think it's very easy to hide behind a sort of veneer of something, You've got to, like, you're talking about listening. Kids are the best at it. Young children, you know what it is.
And they're the best at asking questions.
Well, that's what I mean, because they're listening for the answers. So they ask you these kind of, but why, Dad? But why, Daddy? Why? And you're like, my God.
Absolutely. If I'm reading with my 10-year-old daughter and I'll just read something, I don't understand it, but I skim over, I think, I don't know, it'll probably make more sense. She'll say, question me, what does that mean though? But why are they saying? I don't know. It'll become apparent later, whereas I think I should be looking it up and finding it out, and not just taking it for, I don't need to know that bit. They want to know everything.
Yeah, they do. And that's kind of what I mean. It's that sort of childlike kind of enthusiasm for knowledge and just finding stuff out and being able to kind of really, what kids like, they're kind of, it's almost, they're little lawyers. They're like, they're kind of, they're just hanging on every word. If you fob them off, they'll get it. They're like, no, that doesn't ring true.
You've got to earn that trust. It's funny when you go to, obviously not been to a live event for a while, but when you do go and there's like a day and you've got a few speakers there, you always find the ones that are just on your level, or just say things like they are, and they're just very down to earth, but obviously very intelligent people with a great story to tell or some insights to share with you. Whereas coming back to ones like you say that use more of the jargon, or you just see the audience glazing over, getting lost. And I think it's the same in video, isn't it? It's just like, what do you do? Just break it down in layman's terms. And actually, I don't think you think any less of a person for just calling a spade a spade.
Exactly. I think if you have to really dress it up, then there's something kind of wrong. I still don't know. Like, it's a bit like, you know, like Chandler on Friends, isn't it? I was watching the Friends reunion, like, you know, the joke about no one knowing what
Knows what, yeah.
I still, people tell me, like, and I you know, I'll be the person saying, but like, what exactly when you go into work, what's the first thing you do? So it's amazing how people, like, I guess, how do I say it? So, like, and this is a kind of term that I use a lot. I think we're in the age of authenticity now. Like, I think, you know, if I look back at the 80s, where there was kind of, you know, sports cars and big reception areas, everything was a bit kind of blingy, and that was sort of, you know, that was it was aspirational in a way. Whereas now you look at that and you think, oh my God, like, that's really old fashioned and a bit crass. And it kind of goes, you know, it's a bit like our, you know, all our green credentials. You know, it's all about kind of saving the planet, quite rightly, all about economy. And I think that kind of, nowadays, that sort of communication is aligned to that, where it's just about not bullshitting, you know, it's about just being really straight about things. I love that. It's such a great time.
And I think people are so, again, with social media, LinkedIn, you can pretty much speak to directly whoever you want to now, can't you? There's no boundaries there to the CEO or the director of any business, really. And actually, people expect them to almost have a voice and be sharing content and be passionate about what they do and care about the people that they employ. And I think that's where.
You asked earlier about celebrities, and I like to just kind of, not to talk about celebrities, but to talk about kind of senior, like, people in business. And we've worked with a lot of kind of, you know, C-suite, they call them. And it's something, and it's a very similar thing, actually, is that almost higher up people are, the more kind of open and honest and just simplify everything. And I just love that, and not afraid to kind of say, I don't know. So I think that's a great, you know, that's almost, the more senior you get in a business, the more you have that. And I'm really fascinated by that there's definitely a kind of trait.
And I definitely think the more successful people are when they become CEO of a business, the more down to earth they usually are. They don't tend to band the title about so much or demand, like, you know, celebrity kind of requests. They just turn up and they're quite normal. And I think I have more respect for that. Whereas when it's like, don't speak to me, speak to my PA, I think, okay, I like the one who's just more down to earth. He's actually probably
exactly. Absolutely.
So there's probably a lot of people at the moment who are looking at changing careers, or obviously there'll be a lot of people looking to get into video. What would be your kind of tip or main tip or few tips? What would you say to really
to get into video, as in working for an agency or making,
in whatever capacity, freelance, agency, TV, radio, whatever, really?
What would be my tip? I mean, God, this is such a great time. I mean, it's really, I think it's a great time. Like, when I started out, you just couldn't do it because you couldn't get the equipment. It was just like impossible. And now, like, everyone can be a content creator, really, in terms of the equipment. But I would say my tip would be, and it's kind of difficult because it depends on what capacity, but if you're actually hands-on making videos, I'd say just watch as much content as you possibly can and understand how it works. Like, learn the basics of the kind of grammar of how things work, even going back to old films, going back to silent movies, you know, just look, because you look at all the great content, it's kind of based around something, or it's following some sort of set of rules. And, you know, I tell you what, like, this guy, I think he's an alien, this guy. Have you heard that Burnham? He's like he's literally like a genius. He's a really young guy, but he kind of parodies, you know, he does these musical parodies, but he parodies lighting. He's just done a kind of lockdown Netflix special. But you can see that's someone that's really kind of figured out, like, lots of different genres of stuff and been hugely successful on YouTube. So I'd say kind of look at look at some genres, because some of these things just, they do, they can be translated, and try and get back to the core of where things came from and then put your spin on it. A bit like music, like great musicians, they put a spin on something. They put their own spin on something that's already, well known. So I'm not sure if that's
I think it is, because actually that in itself is learning, isn't it? And it's just taking things in, being aware. Would you recommend get experience at an agency? Just put yourself out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would. The thing about like video making, it's like one of the few things, and it's so great, and this is like one of the best things about it, is you can't like good is good. If you make something good, it doesn't matter if you've been doing it like 20 minutes or 20 years, it does, it's good. You can't, it's not a logarithmic. You don't necessarily get better the more you do it. You've got dips and troughs. Some people are just naturally like gifted at stuff.
And would you say that's the ability to shoot the content, or does that come together in the edit?
I think it's both. I mean, certainly the way I do think it like very rarely comes together in the edit, because it's all been kind of visualized beforehand. Like the edit is sort of a manifestation of a plan that's already happened. But sometimes some magic can happen in the edit. I think it's another, sorry, not to digress from your question, but on shoots, it's really good to leave space for those kind of happy accidents, and leave space for, stuff that you haven't.
Not over storyboard almost.
Yeah, not over storyboard, not over planned, kind of let things, leave some space, because sometimes that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, because I'm always fascinated when we go on video shoots, and then I look at what's being captured, and I know there's a plan, I know there's a goal at the end of it, but I kind of think, every time I think, I just can't visualize this. I just don't know how it's going to come together. It doesn't look great. I can't.
Yeah.
And then it's through the edit, I think, oh, it looks amazing. It looks brilliant.
It's amazing what you can get away with. I'm the same. I had sleepless nights about music videos, trying to figure out the kind of three-dimensional kind of geography in my head, thinking like, is that going to ever cut together? And literally, and it's like you chop the pictures together and it all works.
It just works. Yeah. You can overthink it, can't you?
You can really overthink it, and I'm really guilty of that, because I kind of, it's sort of trusting in the editing process. You're and that's, I guess, to contradict what I said before slightly, to understand the grammar of the past, but also not to try and replicate it sort of completely, if you like. I see a lot of people that kind of, they try and make a really rubbish version of The Matrix or of some film, and they try and turn it into this drama, and it's just like, it's what I would call like the student film. And they're normally kind of dreadful, because they're just like a copy of something.
Yes.
If you've got no budget, be creative within that no budget. Don't try and kind of make a rubbish version of something that's already been made.
Just let it happen and capture what you've got.
Do something a bit differently. Work with what you've got, and be creative around what you've got. One of my mantras is creativity is a function of constraint. So the more creativity you have, and I think that's really important.
And I think sometimes, this is what we've got, this is what we're going with, and you'd be surprised what can come from that. Yeah, amazing. Like, God, there's so many, there's so many great videos have been made with no money, and like, if people are into it, I would, controversially, I'd say, depending on how old you are, I would say if you've got enough money to go to do a media degree, don't go. Spend the money on equipment and just go out and make, give it a go. Have that said, I didn't go to university, but because I left at 16 and started work. But I think university is great for like having that period of your life and the social element with it. I think in the media industry, it won't necessarily get you a better job, and it might not necessarily train you more than you could actually figure out from yourself by going on YouTube. So I mean, I'd say so me not saying don't go to university. I would say you go with knowing that it's about the experience more than the getting a job.
and go with, you know, eyes wide open on that
I
one.
think because it's so fast changing, isn't it? And there's so much
Yeah.
out there that you can learn. Actually, it's hard for courses to stay on top of that, really, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
And actually,
Completely.
they're
It's
probably
always-
learning stuff from the students half the time.
They really are, and yeah, exactly. And I think, but you know, I don't want to kind of be completely down on universities, because I think they offer a life experience, which is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And it gives you a network of a community who are also going to go off and do similar careers, so it gives you those connections. But I think at the same time, you've got to be mindful that you've got to have the drive to do it and then want to do it, and it's got to be you that does that learning. Of course, can only take you so far, can't it?
Exactly. And if you're really hungry to do it, you'll do it. You know, you'd go out, buy a camera, a lot cheaper than the university fees, and just go and do it, you know. And before you know it, you'll be making great stuff.
What would you say, this might be a hard one to answer, but if you were trying to really capture emotion through video, and it's something that you're looking to really leave people with a feeling, is there a way of doing that? Is that through words? Is it through, like, how do you make somebody cry with a video, for example?
You can. Well, we've made people cry with video, and there's definitely a way to do it. And
formula?
Do you know what it's? Oh God, it's a really great question, and to answer it, I'll probably sound a bit mad, because I think there's other, you know, I think with a video you've got sound and you've got pictures, but I think there's another kind of level of energy going on with video. I think I think video can kind of transmit whatever that energy is, and can really transmit emotion somehow. I think it's like I think it's kind of locked in, and it goes way beyond you know, the sort of what you're hearing and what you're seeing. And the way I describe it is like intention. Like the intention of the communication gets somehow conveyed. So you know, if you want to convey emotion, the place to do that is in the interview. If you're interviewing someone on camera, you just get them in that space of absolute connectedness to that emotion, and they will either cry themselves, or they will certainly
in turn makes people
feel it. And it's amazing, and it's just like a trigger. Even talking about it now, you feel it's like emotion gets triggered. And so if you can do that, then you'll capture emotion. And the other thing is don't underestimate, and this is a technique, if you like, don't underestimate the power of like a very, very short space of time to change someone's feeling. So in other words, like, you know, hang on, like if someone says something quite emotive, you stay on the shot for like, even if it's a corporate or something, stay on the shot for like, you know, a second, 2 seconds or whatever, let them, because like a little eye movement or a little kind of mouth movement or a face movement would tell an audience that what that person's thinking. And so, you know, it's amazing how just hanging on shots a bit longer can really, really, really convey an emotion, or like a little, like 1 second cutaway of someone. People can just read emotion. Like we can't maybe articulate it, but we can read it in people's faces. And then when you see it, you get it. It's a bit like, you know, it's interesting. It's like the X Factor, you know, they rely on the, you know, Britain's Got Talent or all these kind of shows. They rely on the backstory. You know, they do all those, you know, they hold on shots. They ask the questions, you know, it's holding on. It's just seeing the kind of emotion in people.
Because it's true, because they've almost got themselves together. They've answered the question, and then that release comes as in. And that's what people want.
I mean, that's exactly the thing. That little, you know, exhalation. It's amazing. Like it only has to be small. I think we can pick up on we're so sophisticated at picking up on people's kind of body language. That you know, as long as it's on the screen. If it's not on the screen, you can't tell. But if it's on the screen, then you know then that works. You'll see it in interviews, like where someone's asking a question, you know, and it might be quite an emotive question. You're not seeing the person asking the question. It's all on the person listening to the question and waiting to answer. And that's where you get those moments. So 2 cameras. That's important.
2 cameras, and don't stop recording.
Exactly. That's it.
Oh, well, I feel like it's been absolutely fascinating. I've loved talking through it all. That video,
Brilliant.
obviously, it's part of
Likewise.
what we do. I absolutely love video. I feel like I've got loads of useful information from you there. I'm sure the listeners will as well. So thank you. Is there anything else that you would have liked me to ask you? Is there a question that perhaps you would have wanted to be asked, or anything else you'd like to add? Or
no, I think we've covered lots actually. I think
yeah,
it's
I
really,
do.
really interesting. No, I don't think there's anything. No.
Okay. And if people want to connect with you and find out more about your businesses, where obviously we'll put it all in the post, but is there anywhere in particular that you'd like to guide them to?
So, well, the shout out is shoutout.social. So if you want to kind of make videos on your own automatically, amazingly easily, you can do that. And then Sprat is sprat.tv, or, connect with me on LinkedIn as well. It's great.
Brilliant. Thank you. Really appreciate you joining me. It's been fascinating.
Perfect. Great to talk to you. Take care.
Thank you.